Good Monday makers. Welcome back to another episode of Maker Pipe Monday. This is our chance to check out all the builds that have been posted to the community throughout the week. And you guys have been busy on springtime builds, garden enclosures, garden trellises. So we've got lots of those. And then stay tuned to the end because we've got two builds where customers figured out how to make door hinges out of ordinary materials. You don't want to miss it. Let's get right into the builds. The first one we've got is by Nancy. She's posted a few times, and this one is her backyard aquaponics setup. She's got these grow ponds that are right here on her deck, and then she's got a trellis system, which she used Conduit and Maker Pipe for, to allow the plants to climb. So really looks great and looks like a neat process. She takes her plants based on what she described and then puts them into grow bags, and then they sit in the ponds. So that's really cool, and I'm glad it worked out for you, Nancy. Thanks so much for posting your backyard build. Here's one by David. He's trying to enclose his wife's garden. Has two raised beds here and wants to fully enclose that, protect it from the deers and the squirrels. So he's got these posts already, or has put these posts in, and then is creating the top roof out of Conduit and kind of linking it to the chicken coop over here. You can see he used 90-degree connectors on the corners, 4-ways on these middle posts, and then 5-way connectors on the center post. Really straightforward. Looks like a great start, David. Keep us posted on how it comes out, and we'd love to see it. Thanks so much. Next one we have is a review by Alan G. in Massachusetts. Thanks so much, Alan. We really appreciate the review. This is on our mix kit. And he says, great products. He's replaced his wooden base for his hoop house, and then he's making it out of EMT. And he goes into a few of the details, but it's 8 foot long by 3 foot high, and he's using it to protect his tomatoes, his early tomatoes. And here it is. He's bent this 1/2-inch conduit into the hoop. He's got his bottom framework out of 3/4 inch, using the shim adapters with our connectors to use the 1/2-inch EMT. And then he's using these furring strips to hold the wiggle wire. And if you haven't heard of wiggle wire, it's a metal channel with some spring steel that allows you to clamp on plastic, greenhouse plastic, to your build. Really handy. And he's attached those with 2-hole straps. So it looks great. Alan, thanks so much for the review. We really appreciate it. And I'm glad you are enjoying the product and your build came out good. Here's one by John, and John made another backyard trellis. He's got, it's pretty simple and it looks really smart. He's got 4 90-degree connectors that make up the corner, and then he braced it in the middle with some T connectors on both sides. He's growing squash and cucumbers in his backyard, so I hope your garden works out great. Unfortunately, he got a cut on his leg from Sharp EMT, and he showed a picture of that. So please be careful with the ends of conduit. Sometimes after you cut, depending on the method you use, you can have a sharp burr. So definitely deburr those. Watch out. And John, thanks for posting that to kind of give people a heads up. Appreciate that. Here's one by Marie. Look at this beautiful backyard enclosure and backyard garden that she made. She has this trellis and raised beds out of pavers, and then she enclosed the whole thing with EMT conduit, zip-tied netting to it. Really looks great. And this is a common problem that a lot of people planning this build run across, is how do I do a door? How do I make a hinge? We've heard this time and time again. So I'm really excited to see Marie and the next build kind of tackle this and come up with a solution of using ordinary materials. And the way Marie did it was she used 1-inch PVC couplers that you can find at your local hardware store. You can see she used 2 of those, and then she screwed them together. So you have kind of this double barrel piece. She attached one with screws to the door and then left the frame side able to swivel. So that's how she made her door hinge. And she just has something that supports it on the bottom. You can see on the other side, she used a simple latch, a gate latch, which probably works great. And then she's got 2 of those setups because her door is pretty tall. So she used one in the bottom, one in the top. Seems like a good way to go. And then for a couple bucks, you've made your own hinges that work with EMT conduit. So that's great. And Marie, thanks so much for sharing this great build. And I love seeing those community solutions with ordinary materials. So that's great. And that's what Peter did as well in our next build. He also was building a garden enclosure, and you can see some picture here. It looks great. He used chicken wire. It's a little bit lower. It's not a full enclosure, but it's definitely going to help keep the critters out. And he needed a way to also make a door for his enclosure, get into the garden. And the way he approached it is he used a number of different materials, but mainly 1/2-inch conduit in this configuration. So he's got a piece of 1/2-inch conduit that bolts to the frame side. He then used a threaded nut insert and put a stud down in the top. And a threaded nut insert, if you haven't seen those before, it presses into the end of conduit and you can thread something into it like a stud or a bolt. If you want more information about that, we did a video about it and you can check that out. It describes it in detail. But then he's got this assembly attached to the frame side, the enclosure side. And then on the door side, he's got, again, a 1/2-inch piece of conduit that he bolts to it, a cap in the top, but then this bushing that he found that fits over the stud. So the door is swinging on the bushing, on the stud, and then the cool thing is he can lift it off. So he wants to remove the door completely, just lifts that off of the stud, puts it aside, and he's got easy access to the garden. Really smart way, ordinary materials, and you can see opens up just great. And you can see he used 2 of those for stability, one on the top and one on the bottom. And a beautiful build and a great garden. So Peter, thanks so much for sharing that hack. I know people are going to love to see this one and the previous one with the PVC couplers. There's been a lot of interest around that, and I hope that helps everybody. Thanks so much for sharing, guys. And thanks for everybody for sharing their builds. We love seeing these, and it's great to have all these springtime builds, all these garden related things, because that's the season that we're in. And to finish off the episode, I want to thank Tao for a comment on our recent interview with Goats of Dover. If you haven't watched this, it's great. Goats of Dover is John's business with his wife, and they use goats for goatscaping, which is like landscaping with goats, and some other different things like Zoom calls and parties and whatnot. But he needed a way to get goats to the different places around town, so he made a goat enclosure for his trailer. He took an off-the-shelf trailer, made an enclosure out of maker pipe, and we talked all about his business and his project, and it was a really great interview. Thanks to John for doing that. But Tao said, thank you. It was a great interview. Congrats to the Goats of Dover for their thriving business. Very creative. And he wanted to share get the Google Drive link with all the media that we talked about. So we're definitely going to do that, and we appreciate the comment. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. If you like these builds, if you want to see more of this, definitely go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Take care.